Hello again. Chosen people syndrome. In this segment, we'll have Ray Franz's analysis of just what it is that causes the seeming inhumanity of Jehovah's Witnesses to even family members. He goes on, many witnesses, though deeply concerned over what they see, find it difficult to adjust to the thought of serving God without being connected to some powerful organization, having the benefit of its largeness, its strength of numbers. True, Jehovah's Witnesses are a small organization and are not as impressive in size as those of the Vatican or other major religions. Nonetheless, the expanding international headquarters, which now owns a sizable chunk of Brooklyn, at least it did in 1983, the many branch facilities, some with large printing establishments, all built or bought at the cost of millions of dollars, and staffed by hundreds of workers. In Brooklyn, for instance, there were at that time about 2,000. The large assembly halls and the many thousands of kingdom halls, not a few costing more than $250,000 to build, which in today's dollars would be more like $750,000 or $1 million, are sufficient to impress the average person. Every new acquisition or expansion of material properties is hailed as indicative of divine blessing and evidence of the organization's spiritual prosperity and success. Above all, the teaching that they are exclusively the one people on earth with whom God has dealings, and that the direction they receive from the governing body is from a divine channel, helps produce a sense of cohesion, of specialness. The view that all other persons are worldlings contributes to this feeling of a close-knit relationship. Because of this, I think it is equally as difficult for the average witness to contemplate serving God without these things as it was for Jewish persons in the first century to contemplate such service apart from the religious arrangements that they were accustomed to. The impressive temple buildings, courtyards at Jerusalem, the temple service carried out by a large staff of hundreds of thousands of dedicated workers, Levites and priests. They're claimed to be exclusively the chosen people of God, with all others viewed as unclean. It stood in tremendous contrast to the Christians of that time, who had no large buildings, who met in simple homes, who had no separate priestly or Levite class, and who humbly acknowledged that in every nation the man that fears God and works righteousness is acceptable to him. That, of course, a quote from Acts 10:35, Peter in the house of Cornelius. Quite a number, particularly among elders of Jehovah's Witnesses, express the sincere hope that some kind of reform will take place to correct the wrongs that they are conscious of, both doctrinally and organizationally. Some suggest that this may come about by a change of personnel in the leadership. Even before I went on my leave of absence from the headquarters in early 1980, a member of a branch committee of a major country, a discerning person who realized the distress I felt over the existing attitudes and situation, said to me, "Ray, don't give up. These are old men. They will not live forever." This expression was not reflective of a hard, unfeeling, cynical personality, for the person who spoke it is just the opposite of that. He is a very kind, warm-hearted man. Such expressions are often born of a belief that some change must come, that the trend toward an ever harder line and an increasingly dogmatic stance must give way to a more Christian approach, a more humble presentation of beliefs. Personally, I do not believe that any fundamental change will come simply through men in authority dying. I say fundamental change, for there have been changes in various degrees throughout the history of the movement, some as a result of the deaths of Russell and Rutherford. Whatever these changes, the basic foundation has remained the same. The change in the authority structure in 1975 to 76 was as major an adjustment as has taken place in the whole history of the organization. Authority was spread out to a body of men, with many new faces coming to the fore. Yet, the power of traditional beliefs and traditional policies has overcome any effort to bring about a change from speculative interpretations, dogmatism, Talmudic legalism, controlled by an elite group, repressive measures, in favor of a simple brotherhood, united in essentials, tolerant and yielding in non-essentials. both in belief and practice. As was true of previous society presidents, the present president, Fred Franz, has been a leader figure, and although the presidency itself was stripped of virtually all its intrinsic power in the decentralizing action of 1975 to 76, he personally, that is Fred Franz, remains very influential. He is now in his 90s. There is no question but that his passing would affect and alter the picture, for there is no one of a charismatic personality like his, or like that of his predecessors, Russell Rutherford or Nathan Knorr. Among the remaining members of the governing body, there's no one like them, Ray says. Since the doctrinal superstructure that developed from the death of Judge Rutherford in 1942 onward is essentially the product of the writings of Fred Franz, and much of the basic policy regarding disfellowshipping issues, likewise his, the possibility of doctrinal changes or adjustments clearly becomes greater in his absence. So in the next segment, what does Ray Franz will change? What does Ray Franz think will change when his uncle finally passes away?